Good morning, everyone. Before we dive in, let's address the elephant in the room. One look at leadership strictly through a global context, because in the 21st century, globalization isn't background scenery, it's the actual stress test. A strategy that works perfectly at local headquarters can fail completely once it crosses a border, culturally, economically, and digitally. So today, we are not just going to recite theories, we are going to test it against real, global, and sometimes massive cases. And by the end, each of us is going to leave you with exactly one thing that is worth holding on to.
Here's how we have split today's journey. Mystery open with leadership skill and trait in global context. Mr. Ding take us through a critical evaluation of leadership theories. Mr. Hong covers strategic leadership approaches. And I, Minh Toàn, ask the question that ties it all together. Are leaders born or trained? And Mr. Tan closes with the business challenges every leader faces today, especially in the digital space. One more thing, every case today, Tesla, Twitter, Lego, Ford, Starbucks, Unilever, and Bumble, is deliberately global, not one company at scale. That's what global business context should actually mean.
So let's start with traits and skills. Which leadership skills matter most in the 21st century? Psychologists will start with personality, the big five traits: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. That's OCEAN in short. Decades of research ask the same question we're asking now. Which of these five actually predicts who leads? My answer starts with data, not story. The most cited study on this, Church in 2002, tested all five traits against leadership across more than 70 studies. The winner, extroversion, outgoing, assertive, energetic, the classic image of a leader. Here's the problem with stopping there, especially in the global context. The findings come almost entirely from Western, individualist samples. The Globe study, 62 societies, found the opposite in several cultures. Assertiveness rests as arrogance in Nordic context. Human, relationship-first behavior is valued over outspoken confidence across much of Asia. A trait that predicts leadership in Chicago doesn't automatically predict it in Hanoi or Copenhagen. So that's the second problem. Even ignoring culture, personality overall explains less than half of what makes someone who can lead well. Trait, yes, open the door, but they don't walk a leader through it. That's why we are putting the argument on skill, not personality. Cass model in 1955 splits leadership into three: technical, human, conceptual. And the finding that still holds 70 years later is that the higher the role, the more conceptual skill. Conceptual skills show up in two directions, inward and outward. Look at Lego, inward first. In 2004, the company was handed to a 35-year-old CEO, Jürgen Wignerstock, carrying $300 million in losses. Lego has spread itself too thin, drifting from its core product, a physical brick with an appeal that spanned generations. Wignerstock's first move was a question: what if the problem is not the market, but us? That conceptual skill turned inward, seeing the organization whole enough to spot its own blind spot. Now, outward. John Hank, CEO of Niantic Special, the AI company spun out from Niantic, the studio behind the Pokemon Go, shows conceptual skill at its most counterintuitive. For a decade, players thought that they were just scanning landmarks to catch Pokemon. Hank saw something else entirely different: 30 billion opt-in camera scan, quietly building the most detailed map of human-scale city environment ever assembled. In his own words, getting Pikachu to realistically run around and getting Coco robots to safely and accurately move through the world is actually the same problem. That's the data set. Now guys, Coco reported deliver robots through urban canyons where GPS fails, navigating with centimeter level precision. Nobody playing the game in 2016 could have seen that connection. That's conceptual skill pointed outward. Two direction, one skill. Cass number is the one that predicts who's still leading a decade later.
Thank you, Ms. Queen, for the part. So how is leadership actually built? The field-old history gives 5 answers. each responding to the last. Trade theory said leaders are simply born with it. Though, as we heard again today, twin studies put the real genetic share at only about 30%. Behavioral theory pushed back. Leadership can be trained through observable habits. Competency theory narrowed that further, not just behavior, but the specific capability to solve real business problems. Contingency theory added the missing piece. The right style depends entirely on the situation. That evolution lands today onto the two most contested theories in modern business, transformational and transactional. So, transformational or transactional? My answer, it depends on the situation. Elon Musk proved it, being both at two companies, early at Tesla, brutal hours below market pay, through production hell. Nobody forced it, they believe in something bigger. That's transformational leadership strength. No enforcement needed, just belief. It's limited. Belief takes years to build. Years Tesla barely had. The right tool for a founder with patient investors. Wrong tool for the company big in cash. Same man at Twitter, October 2022, 44 billion and within weeks of 80% of staff gone. Not for a reason, but for one number. Losing 4 million a day. Theory X work for work. Its strength is speed, exactly what a company burning cash needs. Its limits show just as fast. Moral gone, just gone, no mechanism to win either back. Here's the global context twist though. The same commanding style reads very differently depending on where you are. The Globe study found that decisive top-down control is admired in the US, but the exact same behavior reads as authoritarians in cultures that expect consultation first. An advantage in one boardroom can be a liability to the moment of the team is multicultural. Much didn't change, the situation did. Tesla had time, Twitter has a mess. The moment decides the style, not the person. One thing must never is the servant leadership. So, who is it? Paul Polman, Unilever CEO from 2009, employee and stakeholder well-being over short-term returns. Tested in 2011, rejecting 143 million hosts within 55 hours from Kraft Heinz. Servant leadership strength is durability, is built on the kind of stake leadership stress that survives a host of it. Its limitation is patience. It only works with a board willing to want years for that just to pay off, which is exactly what a company under urgent pressure doesn't have. The Twitter. Legal tests a different limitation. Same company, same CEO, not stop 5 stages. Survive, purpose, let growth loose, step up, lead. Directed in what year 1, hands off 10 years later. Situation, low leadership strength is obvious. It adapts instead of forcing one style everywhere. Its limitation is just real. Switching styles repeatedly risks losing inconsistently, and it demands a level of self-awareness most leaders don't sustain for a decade. Then, there's authentic leadership. Starbucks chose this season to give part-time barista health insurance and stock option in 1988. Traces back to his own father. Injured on the job, no insurance, no compensation. Its strength is just that's hard to fake because it's rooted something real. Its limitation is exactly what makes it powerful. It's personal. Truth's decisions was shaped by his father's story, not just by a shareholder vote, which raises a real question about whether authentic leadership at a public company reflect the leader's values, or the owners put Musk, Poland, nuts up and struts together. None fit one box. Each theory has a strength, a limitation, and a scenario where it actually applies. The real skill isn't picking a favorite, it's matching the theory to the moment, and in the global business, matching it to the culture in the room too. Now, let's come to the next part, strategic leadership approach, presented by Mr. Hong.
Thank you, Dick. We've evaluated the theories, but a theory sitting in a textbook doesn't run a company. As our professor put it, an approach is what you get when you apply a theory to an actual specific context. It's the bridge between the concept and the execution. So, which of Goldman Sachs leadership styles should a leader use most? My answer is democratic, affiliative, coaching, and visionary. The four styles Goldman found most positive for team climate. And the shift behind the answer is simple. Leaders can't keep treating people like replaceable parts in a machine. Take Alan Mueller, Ford's CEO in 2006. The company was heading for a $70 billion loss. Every instinct says, take control, cut hard. He did the opposite. He built a weekly meeting where every executive had to report status honestly. For weeks, every single report came back green until one executive finally marked a project red. Mueller clapped, thanked him. That one reaction rebuilt Ford's entire culture of honesty and democratic leadership. Slow and unglamorous as it looks is exactly why Ford avoided the bankruptcy GM and Ziegler didn't. Same logic as Starbucks. Scott's decision to give part-time baristas health insurance and stock options in 1988 came from watching his own father get injured on the job with no safety net. That's affiliative leadership, and is also why Starbucks built one of retail's most loyal workforces decades before employee experience was abused. Early on, commanding and pay setting still have a place, but never alone. Look at Musk's production hell at Tesla. Employees working brutal hours for less pay because Musk himself was on site setting the same impossible standard. That's pay setting at its rawest, alone that burns a team out fast. Pair with coaching and affiliative, showing people how, not just what, it becomes onboarding a brand new team through the hardest phase, not just pressure for its own sake. As competence grows, the leader shifts to democratic models who can help, and the destination is coaching that leads the real delegation. Bill Campbell never ran a major company himself. He spent his career coaching the people who did. Steve Jobs, Larry Page, Eric Schmidt, without needing credit for the results. Whitney Wolf did the same thing at scale. Bumble exists because of one sentence, one message first. Simple enough that thousands of employees and users could run with and without asking her first. That sequence isn't just kinder. It's why Ford avoided bankruptcy, why Starbucks built a loyal workforce, why Bumble scaled to an IPO. Treat people as costs to cut, and you get short-term numbers. Treat them as the assets actually driving results, and you get a company that lasts.
Are leaders born or trained? I'm the youngest person in this group, so this question isn't just academic for me. Trade theory's original claims was blunt. Leaders are born, not made. Modern research doesn't fully dismiss that. A twin study by Awe et al. In 2006 found that around 30% of the variance in whether someone lived is genetic. That's a major number, not a folklore. But look at the cleanest counter, Bill Campbell. Before Silicon Valley ever knew his name, he spent 6 years as a Columbia's head football coach with a losing record. At 39, he left football entirely and started over in advertising. It took another decade before he became the coach who mentored Steve Jobs, Larry Page, and Eric Schmidt. If coaching was simply inborn, it should have shown up on the football field first, but it didn't. Look, stop. Lagos wasn't born self-awareness before near bankruptcy. Ford's $17 billion loss forced Mueller how to rebuild trust. Trade may set a ceiling, but behavior is built through experience. Real leadership is trained by navigating environmental and market change. Hank in 90s Spatial didn't wait for someone else to find a use for a decade of Pokemon Go data. He saw the connection years before anyone else would have thought to look. But as AI and big data become advanced and at predicting trends and automating workflows, a new question arises. Can AI replace the human leaders? That is Mr. Tan's focus.
Just as defining questions of our era, will AI wipe out human leadership? The short answer is no. In today's fast-moving and volatile environment, there's a misconception that an algorithm can manage an organization. That's true that AI can drastically quicken processes and documentation, but it cannot evaluate. Netflix, they successfully filled the market gap created by a new industry through Broadway delivery. Today, they use extensive data to produce original series, but are the outcome exactly as expected? No. The audience preference and market demands are constantly changing. If nobody updates the inputs, the AI fall behind. And here, the AI saw an employee underperforming, they can only see inefficiencies without considering the fact that the employee might do some extra activities that help the organization or the customer at the cost of time. This is exactly where human leadership remains irreplaceable. The conceptual skills and human skills Priyan discussed earlier are required at every stages, and humans know the unquantifiable change in human environment. The bot just do the math, not lead the people. That is why the resistance from people toward AI and algorithmic management shouldn't be met with strict enforcement. Instead, it should be correct and redefining the AI true role. AI does not replace human, it's an entity that validates and proves AI results are correct. Is the human leader. This brings us to the strategic proposal in modern business challenges, the accountability layer. In every algorithmic decisions that affect a person's schedule, performance, or a company's strategic direction must all have a human leader who evaluates it, explains, and owns it. That is Robert Katz's human skills applied to the new era. Until now, the AI itself cannot be held accountable for its mistake, and the person behind the bot does. If that is the law, it speaks some things. By 2035, leaders worth training won't be the one who blindly operates the algorithm best. They will be the one with the conceptual skills and to evaluate the data and the human skill to take absolute accountability for the outcome. To summarize, the 21st century's global business context is volatile, it's digital, it's algorithmically driven. But as we've shown today, that the answer to technological and global challenges is ironically human. Theories such as tools, real strategic leadership is knowing how to adapt across borders and know where to shield your people from the system that manage them. And before the question, there's a 5 takeaway. One for each of us. Conceptual vision, personality opens the door. And if you spot the crisis before it hits, build that first. And in yourself, whoever you're developing. So, cultural agility. There's no perfect theory. There's a discipline to test where style against the room you're actually in, not the one you're trained for. Human value. In the world who obsessed with efficiency, it is how you treat people as assets to drive the results, not cost to cost. Trained resilience, a potential to maybe genetic, but it is a real leadership that built through failures and don't wait for talent. And finally, absolute accountability. It is technology taking over execution. Accountability is the only thing that can't be replaced. Whatever the algorithm does, humans has to own it. I thank you for listening, and that is our group on the edge.